about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a metaphysician, creator of metaphysics, spiritual educator, and of course, an author too, none other than Mr. Reginald Martin. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Reginald. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, Daniel, thank you, man. I'm so glad to be here and honored that you'd have me on your show. So I'm Reginald Martin. I'm the founder of Metaphysics, Sacred Alchemy. And so just a metaphysician. I'm like you said, I'm an author. So I've done many things basically to develop this message of how ancient African spirituality really is the foundation of a lot of spiritual systems around the world, and even the Abrahamic religions. So everything that is now what we call Christianity, and that was my childhood religion that I grew up in. This Kemetic science and Kemetic physics is the foundation of it, but Christianity changed it.
And Mr. Reginald Martin, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about the conversion to divinity, how ancient African spiritual science helps former Christians reclaim their power. And what does the conversion mean in your context? How does it differ from simply living organized religion?
Yeah, so with Christianity, there is, of course, we kind of get indoctrinated into it for most of us that we're born into it, and when we get into this indoctrination, there's a whole frame that we are taught to live within. Okay, and usually that frame that most of us are taught to live within is that we're born sinners and that we need to be saved from that state. So immediately when you're born in the world, you're born sinners. But what happens with that is that you also start to end up ingesting a lot of what I call negative programming. And it's really like a virus into our mental programming system. And we start to not only do we have to accept the idea that we're born sinners, but we also start carrying around the idea that we are unworthy, we're broken, different things. So for me and my culture when I was growing up, I wondered why our neighborhoods reflected that same idea. But the idea of deconversion and deconstructing is that you end up questioning that type of belief system and you start to move away from it. So that's the whole idea. So with Kemetic physics and ancient Kemetic system, when we it, deconversion kind of can kind of get you stuck in a place of limbo. But what the Kemetic system does is not only help you through deconversion and deconstruction, it helps you reconstruct a new identity because your whole identity is wrapped up in the idea that you are a born sinner. Whereas with the ancient Kemetic system, we're all born divine. So that's one of the differences, major differences. And with the religious system, uh, it is what I call and what psychologists call an external locus of control, meaning that you believe that God is outside of you, you believe that your power is outside of you, and that you need intervention. Okay. Whereas with the Kemetic system and Kemetic physics, it is an internal locus of control where you basically recognize that you are an extension of God or the universe in human form and that you are connected to that source. And it is an inward journey rather than looking outside of yourself for your power.
Very well said, Mr. Reginald. Beautifully, beautifully articulated. What was the catalyst that made Christianity unsustainable for you?
It started at a very early age, Daniel. So I was probably about 15 years old when I got brave enough to ask the questions. I started asking questions or in my mind before then, but I finally started asking questions. And the one question that really stood out to me was, how could God send someone to hell for eternity? In other words, you make one mistake and you burn in hell for eternity. And the other problem that I had with that was is that if somebody didn't believe in Jesus, then they would automatically go to hell for eternity. And so I remember asking someone that was very close to me. I said, if a person that was a mass murderer, they killed a lot of people, and then on their deathbed they accepted Jesus into their life, would they go to heaven? And on the flip side of that, if somebody that did good all their life and didn't believe in Jesus, would they go to hell? And that person basically said, yeah, they would. And so the person would the mass murderer would go to heaven, and the good person that did good because they didn't believe would go to hell. That just didn't sit right with me, Daniel. I couldn't process that. Even at 15 years old. So by the time I went to college, I basically considered myself atheist because I didn't want to accept that belief that a God would be that a God would be so heinous as to sentence a person to hell for eternity and have no redemption. That just seems like that's just so um, I can't imagine somebody that would think like that. I have children. There is nothing that my children could do that I would banish them with that type of a punishment for eternity. No forgiveness, no nothing. I don't care what they did. So if we're all children of God, why would God and I can think like that, then my question was is am I more benevolent than the creator of the universe? And I'm thinking to myself, there's just no way. So I that really started my journey. It's just moving away from Christianity, and it's been years researching and finding out different ideas, even about hell. That a lot of what we were taught in Christianity just was not true.
Mr. Reginald, how did shame and powerlessness manifest in your spiritual identity before this journey?
Before where I am now,
Yes.
yeah. So inside those beliefs of being a born sinner, then and there's two really big identities that most of us carry, and that is guilt and shame. So guilt is the frame of you did something wrong, okay, and you're automatically guilty for it or whatever, and you're ashamed of it or whatever. Shame is the idea that you as a being is wrong, okay, and so Christianity automatically sets up that system for us that we are born again, we're born sinners, and then all of our lives we're having to try to overcome that state. And it is said that if we just believe, then that's supposed to be enough. But usually that's not the case. So that's where that started from. Carrying the guilt and the shame about so many things. I just remember being a teenage boy and having sexual thoughts. Just as all of us boys do. All of us as teenagers do, and then supposedly having to be ashamed for even thinking that, and that even thinking like a sexual thought about a girl, I could go to hell for that. You know, so all of those things were running around in my mind just as a teenager. And again, as I got older and researched more, I just found out that they twisted so many of these ideas. It's not even funny. And what comedic physics did was I ended up stumbling on um, uncovering a lot of what Christianity had taught.
And Define African spiritual science. How does it reframe concepts like divinity, prayer, and ethics differently from Abrahamic traditions?
Great question. So from a Christian, and I'll just compare and contrast here. But
Yes.
from a Christian perspective, God is outside of us. So God created the universe, and then we and created something that was outside of itself and different. Okay. From a comedic perspective, God is the one source. So it was a monotheistic system, but it was God is one source, and everything is created from that source. Okay, so we're not the same magnitude as the Creator, but we are an aspect of the Creator in human form. That means that we even have the same ability to create. So that's one of the empowering things about comedic physics and comedic science is that you're taught that you have the ability to create your reality. So the law of attraction and all of those things, actually, the foundation of those ideas even came from African spirituality. So that is the main crux of and difference between the two systems. Okay, what most people didn't realize is that in Christianity we're taught that ancient Egypt is the villain. Okay, that ancient Egypt is the bad guy, but that what that ended up doing was making people shut off from even going and studying ancient Egypt. But what happens if you study the ancient Kemetic system, and you learn it from a symbolic system rather than the literal way that Christianity taught it, you'll uncover so many esoteric codes or hidden codes, even in the Bible. So the Bible is actually, we look at it from what's called an exoteric perspective, meaning that there is a uh, generally accepted knowledge that we're taught from, but there is actually an esoteric perspective or esoteric symbolism underlying all of the biblical teachings. So things that we look at as historical and characters and people are actually frameworks. They're actually spiritual frameworks. Okay. So that's a huge difference in understanding, is that these stories that we're told, they're not about people. They're actually about us as souls navigating the earth plane.
Mr.
So big
Reginald,
difference.
yes, big difference. So how do systems like IFA or icon cosmology or chematic philosophy offer practical tools for decolonizing the psyche after religious trauma?
Yeah, that again, another great question, because what it does is that the idea that we are born sinners, that puts you in one frame, and it puts you in a frame of being something different or something negative. And so, as people of the African diaspora around the world, a lot of times just our skin color made us an object of derision, in a lot of cases. But it with understanding that from an African perspective, the African spirituality perspective, is that you are here to learn your power as a soul, having a human experience, and learning the idea that you are a creator. So you learn not to be think of yourself as a victim. You look at the hardships and the difficulties in life as ways that are, in a sense, training you as a soul to learn your true power and your ability to create on the earth plane, or as the ancients called it, the underworld. Okay, so that's a huge difference when you're talking about decolonizing the mind, and this is really for anybody that is able to look at these ideas and you learn these processes. One huge one is understanding is the idea of ma'at. And this is where you heard the idea of the law of attraction, where they say thoughts become things.
Yes,
So
Mr. Reginald.
So the foundation of that came from the ancient African spiritual system, where Ma'at is known as truth, balance, and reciprocity. Okay. The reciprocity thing is meaning that from a vibrational perspective, everything that is outside of you that is life is actually a reflection of your internal vibrational essence. Okay, so your vibrational essence is being projected as your life, and when you can understand that your thoughts, your beliefs, and all of that becomes the things or your life, then to change things in your life, then you change your thoughts and beliefs. Okay. So um, if you have a negative disposition, or you're pessimistic about life, a lot of people go into the law of attraction and they want to say, if you think positive, then you can create, you can manifest things. But the problem is that they might can think positive on the surface for a minute, but if their internal system is from a pessimistic perspective, if you think of a thought as a seed and your internal environment as the soil, then you can't plant a positive seed in negative soil and expect that seed to get nourished. Okay. So in that way, when you understand that the bigger part of you um, is a creator, and that the ability to resonate with the ideas that you truly want to manifest, then thinking positive becomes a part of the process, but it is actually being positive. And when I say being, that is having an internal perspective and an environment of positivity and staying focused on the things that you want rather than focusing on the things that you don't want. And that's what a lot of people end up doing, is that they'll focus on they'll focus on the negative thing, but that's actually um, projecting that negative thing into the universe vibrationally, and the positive thing that they want, it can't manifest because it's being planted in a negative soil. So in that way, it empowers you to recognize that if you want to change your life, then you change your internal environment. You change your thoughts and beliefs. When you change your thoughts and beliefs, then your outside life is going to reflect those changes and life is going to manifest in the way that you want.
Mr. Reginald, as a metaphysician, creator of Metaphysics, spiritual educator, and as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
The short term goals is just to enjoy life, Daniel, and I think that that's one of the main things that the ancient teachings were taught us before Christianity. That life is you're here, you manifested here because you wanted to learn, one, that you're a creator, and two, that you were supposed to enjoy life, and three, you do that through your joy. Okay. So short term goal, enjoy life. Long term goal is to help spread this message to people, to humanity. So even though it's African spirituality, humanity started in Africa. So for me, it's about everybody. So anybody that wants to connect to these ideas, anybody that is overcoming or deconstructing from Christianity, this knowledge and this message is going to be so empowering for them, because it will help you overcome the rigid dogmatic beliefs, and then help you reframe to a more spiritual and internal guidance system, or connecting to your internal guidance system. So I want to get everybody on board with that, because I believe that once we can love who we are, then we'll make the space to love everybody else. And right now, I think religion ends up being a way that separates so many of us.
Well, good luck to your goals, Mr. Reginald, and looking forward for more success. What would be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Well, for people, when you say like me, say that you mean like
A
just living life.
metaphysician, yes, a
Okay.
metaphysician, a creator of a metaphysics, and a spiritual educator as an author.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that comes from really you learning these ideas and these tools. So I do have a way that people can do that. I have a certification program where I actually teach people these concepts, and I actually give them a whole business system around these ideas. But it is about just you becoming more confident in who you are as a creator. So that's one of the biggest ways to do it. And then just learn this system, and actually learning the system is about using it in your life every day.
Definitely, and thank you for your advice, Mr. Reginald. And can you please recommend a books or book that influenced
Yeah,
your journey?
yeah. So one book would be The African Origins of Civilization by Sheikh Anta Diop. And this is a book that basically shows people that because a lot of people really believe that African did not have a spiritual system, that the ancient Africans didn't, but he showed that through his research that African spiritual system is really the foundation of a lot of spiritual and religious systems around the world.
Thank you for that recommendation. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. Reginald, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in its fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in its fourth season, as well as my movie 101 review and music 101, Science 101, and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Reginald, kindly complete these sentences or sentence. Reclaiming my power meant finally understanding that divinity is blank.
It's finally understanding that divinity is me. So is divinity is who I am. So that's where I come from, and I am an extension of divinity.
Mr. Reginald Martin, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, or any projects that you are doing right now?
Yeah, so a couple of my main projects is you can connect with me at on my Substack at reginaldmartin.substack.com, and it's for anybody that's ready to receive some essays, metaphysical essays, videos to teach them, and also if you're looking for rebuilding your belief system, the metaphysics soul level operating system, and you can get to that at www.cometaphysics.com.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Reginald Martin because if you support him, more and more and more empowering advocacy to come, more and more empowering books as well, and for sure, more and more empowering metaphysician will come. So, Mr. Reginald, thank you so much for your time.
You bet. Thank you for having me, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.